Today we've got some exciting news for Sprinter owners. Today we've got a 2021 LTV in the shop. So this is the Sprinter 3500 chassis, and we're doing some work on the rear suspension. So let's get in here and take a look. Here we've got our factory spring pack, and you can see how you've got two leafs with arch on the top here, and then a lower overload leaf that's much thicker in the middle and then tapers down at the outside. You notice this bottom leaf is straight. And the reason for that design is the Sprinter 3500 chassis is used in a variety of applications. So this same chassis could also be used as a dually cargo van, plumber van type application. And in those cases, when they're not loaded, that the back of the van is quite a bit lighter, so you don't need that full spring rate to support as you would at the max gross axle weight rating, a max GVWR of the chassis. So with this design, you can have a much lower spring rate over the first few inches of travel where only these top two leafs are engaged. And then as the suspension settles, there's rubber pads on that second leaf that'll then start to engage the ends of this lower tapered overload. And basically your spring rate ramps up quite a bit in that last few inches of travel as you get roaded near the max rating of the coach, or sorry, of the van. Now, all of that is fine. It makes sense. It does, however, present some trade-offs for control, ride quality, handling on a vehicle like this, where it's pretty much always running within a few hundred pounds of the rear axle weight rating. So the rear GAWR is about 7,700 pounds on the back of these Sprinter 3500s. And just for reference, this coach is running about 7,200 pounds. So you're within 500 pounds already of the rear GAWR. We've seen these come in at, or in some cases above, the rear GAWR. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you really don't gain anything by having that progressive increase in spring rate. You know, again, where you've got a much lower spring rate over the first few inches of travel until that lower overload leaf engages. What really would be better for this type of application is a spring pack whose arch is all of the springs are fully engaged right from the beginning of travel. And so that way you're getting basically full support immediately. And if you could have something like that, then you can actually run a lower spring rate because your full spring rate is engaging sooner. So that spring is starting to push back harder sooner through more of the suspension travel, allowing you in the end to run effectively a softer spring rate. Now, what would that mean for you as a driver? Well, with a softer spring rate, you're not going to have the same slam effect, really harsh ride that you can get from the back of some of these things, especially when you're getting a lot of travel in the rear suspension, like hitting a speed bump, something like that. You really do feel just how high the spring rate is because of that lower overload leaf being engaged. Now, there are companies out there that are making full replacement spring packs for the back of these, and that is a good solution. However, we do run into issues with fitment in some cases where if we pan in here, that bolt could not come out all the way without removing the generator. So that's one obstacle in this case. It's not a major issue, but a lot of these LTVs, we see them even closer. Let's go over to the left rear though and show you how close some of the components can be to that bolt head. All right, now let's take a look at the left rear. You can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So here, our spring eye bolt is right up against the black water tank. It's really difficult to get in here at these to remove those bolts to get them out. So this one actually, the front on both sides is actually open, but on a lot of these things, you'll have multiple either compartments or tanks right up against that spring eye bolt. So in those cases, it can be a lot easier if you don't actually have to remove that main leaf. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. So what we're going to do, and you can see on this side, we're going to keep the factory main leaf in place we're just replacing part of the spring pack. So remember how I said what we want is a spring pack that has the same arch the whole way through? Well, so what we're going to do is get rid of the second leaf here, and especially get rid of that lower tapered leaf, because it's not doing any good for the first several inches of travel. And what we're going to do is put either a 6 or 7 leaf pack in addition to this main leaf, and that way you're actually getting that spring rate engaging sooner through the first few inches of travel. So again, by doing that, you're going to get a better ride quality, you're going to get better control. You're not going to get that same kind of slamming harshness because our spring rate is not so high in the last few inches of travel as it is with the factory overload design. All right, so let's take a look at these before they're installed. So this is our SS3500 LS-aux. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves. So they can be installed either with 5 leaves or 6. So we're removing this leaf in this case because we don't want this lighter coach to end up being too tall. But again, these leaves go in place of the factory second and third leaf and really give you that support. So this arch matches that of the main leaf that starts to engage sooner, and really gives you an optimized spring rate for your application. And then here you can see we do have a lower overload leaf, which typically does not engage at all. That would only be in a very maximum travel situation where that would start to engage, and just to prevent the axle from traveling upward too far. That corrects a common issue you see on these Class C Sprinters, is that your springs are reverse arched, because again, that lower overload leaf does not engage until your leaves are flat. So you're typically running like this down the road on the back of them. So we're restoring arch to the suspension, we're reducing the spring rate, we're giving you better control because that thicker spring pack is going to do a better job resisting sway as well. And we're also able to gain you some ride height too. So we're able to tune it depending on the number of leaves used, whether or not we're keeping the factory spacer blocks in place. That would gain, typically we're removing these because that would generally gain you quite a bit of ride height in that case. So typically we're removing that factory spacer block on the rear wheel drives and just going to just the spring pack itself, essentially taking up that space, gaining around an inch of ride height compared to the factory configuration. But again, we can tune it depending on what you're looking at. And if that's of interest to you, please give us a call, 541-479-2882 at Henderson's Lineup. Visit us at hendersonslineup.com. These have really been working really nice on the back of these Sprinter Class Cs, especially applications like this LTV, where a lot of the LTVs, your different options for overload springs that go on top of the spring pack really don't fit too well. So this is a nice solution too, where you don't have to put anything on top of the spring pack. You also don't have to remove that main leaf. We're just adding support to the bottom of the spring pack by getting rid of that second and third leaf, and really designing a new spring pack configuration that's optimized for this application. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Please let us know in the comments below. And till next time, I want to wish you safer and happier driving.